The intercom buzzed, sharp and insistent, echoing through the gleaming corridors of the Galactic Coalition's Vanguard Academy. Cadets froze mid-stride, rifles slung, combat knives clipped to belts. The voice that followed carried the weight of countless campaigns, a timbre honed in wars across uncharted star systems. "Attention, cadets," it said. "Commander Zh'kral commands. No mercy in sparring." A ripple of murmurs spread through the training hall. "No merci, repeated Sergeant Vej, Ismirkin." It means full contact, but don't freak out. They won't actually let anyone. But before he could finish, a sharp thwack echoed from the other side of the hall. One cadet, a human girl named Ava Chen, had already assumed combat stance, her eyes narrowing like a predator sizing up prey. Unlike the others, she didn't hesitate. She had been raised in the unforgiving backstreets of old Earth, where mercy was a weakness and survival demanded brutal clarity. Ava's reputation preceded her, whispered in the shadows of the dorms. "She fights like the city itself molded her," some cadets had said. But no one had seen it firsthand, not until now. The first sparring match began. Cadets circled each other warily, muscles taut, weapons primed. Ava's opponent, a towering Zalari warrior from the ice moons of Jorith, moved first, fast, precise, trained in a dozen planetary combat styles. Most humans would have crumbled, barely registering the speed, but Ava danced around the strikes with uncanny timing. She used her opponent's weight against them. Every kick, every punch, every feint turned into a counter that left the hall gasping. Medical drones buzzed overhead, recording data streams, but for the first time, they struggled to keep pace. Ava's eyes were cold, her movements sharp, her intent unmistakable. She was not sparring. She was fighting to win, to survive, to rewrite what every non-human in the hall thought they knew about humans. And in that first moment, the walls of the Vanguard Academy began to tremble, not from strength, but from disbelief. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment if you want to see more stories where humans turn the impossible into reality. And trust me, Ava is just getting started. The clang of armor and the thud of bodies against the reinforced floor echoed like distant thunder. The cadets had expected controlled drills, predictable outcomes. They had not expected a human to turn the training hall into a storm of relentless aggression. Ava's next opponent, a hulking Varisian with arms like steel cables, charged with a roar that rattled the ceiling. Most cadets would have taken a step back, but not Ava. She sidestepped, letting the momentum carry him past her, then twisted and drove him down with a precision kick to a pressure point that was almost mythical in its effectiveness. The Varisian hit the floor with a groan that silenced half the hall. The instructors froze. Commander Zh'kral himself, a figure of jagged exoskeletal plating and hundreds of battle scars, watched from the observation balcony. A slow, approving nod passed over his face. Rarely did he see a human execute technique with both finesse and raw brutality. "Impressive," he murmured in his guttural tongue, unheard by most. "She doesn't just fight, she redefines the rules." Cadets whispered nervously. Some glanced at each other in disbelief. How could a human girl, smaller than most of her opponents, move with the precision of a predator that had hunted across Deathworlds? Each strike was economical, ruthless, and elegant. Every dodge was a message. Underestimate me, and you will regret it. By the third match, the medical bay had already dispatched emergency bots to keep pace. Cadets stumbled and fell, bruised, gasping, some unable to hide their growing fear. Ava didn't stop to admire her work. Her eyes were locked on the next challenge, and with every swing of her fists, she etched a new definition of what a human could endure and survive. Even the AI monitoring the sparring arena registered anomalies in her biometrics. Stress levels that should have been critical, heart rates that should have spiked, yet her stamina remained unbroken. In that moment, something shifted. The hall, once a place of structured drills, became a proving ground where instinct, strategy, and pure human grit collided with alien power. And all around her, cadets began to realize something terrifying. This wasn't just a fight. This was a lesson in survival the likes of which the Galactic Coalition had never seen. Ava's shadow moved across the hall like a storm sweeping over an alien landscape. Every opponent she faced fell faster than the last, their strikes thwarted, their balance undone. Cadets who had once joked about human fragility now whispered in awe and fear. Even the instructors, battle-hardened across hundreds of worlds, leaned forward, watching with a mix of fascination and concern. Her next adversary, a Triarchon cadet with 4 limbs and reflexes that rivaled the fastest AI, lunged with blinding speed. Most beings would have relied on brute force, but Ava danced around each strike, her body a study in efficiency. With a flick of her wrist, she disarmed the creature, sending its weapons spinning across the floor, then delivered a series of rapid, precise strikes that left it staggered. "Humans," muttered a nearby cadet. "They're unreal." Ava didn't hear them. She never did. Her focus was singular, almost frightening in its intensity. She wasn't just fighting for victory, she was proving a point. Every motion was a testament to her training on the streets of old Earth. Every dodge a story of survival against impossible odds. Commander Zh'kral's eyes narrowed as he observed from above. His species valued strength, strategy, and centuries of military tradition. Yet here was a human girl, rewriting the rulebook with nothing but instinct, intelligence, and sheer audacity. His mouth twisted into a faint smirk. "Perhaps we underestimated them," he said, almost to himself. "Perhaps the legends are true." Meanwhile, the hall descended into controlled chaos. Medical drones swarmed over the fallen, recording injuries, monitoring vital signs, and adjusting protocols on the fly. The cadets who remained on their feet hesitated, watching Ava with wide eyes, some stepping back to reconsider their strategies. This wasn't training anymore. It was survival of the fittest, and Ava had set the bar impossibly high. Even as her opponents fell, whispers began to circulate. Humans were not just resilient. They were predators in disguise. The phrase "Deathworld human" started to echo through the corridors, carried by awestruck cadets who had just witnessed raw, uncompromising skill. And Ava? She moved to the next challenger without pause, her expression unreadable, her body a weapon, her mind a battlefield strategist. She was no longer just a cadet. She was a force that demanded recognition. The legend of Ava Chen, the girl who took no mercy literally, had begun. The clang of the final impact echoed as Ava's last opponent crumpled to the floor, gasping and defeated. Silence swept over the hall. Cadets frozen in awe, instructors exchanging uneasy glances, and even the automated surveillance systems seemed to pause, struggling to categorize what had just occurred. The medbots had their work cut out. Some cadets were bruised, others battered, and a few were questioning the very definition of human resilience. Ava, however, dusted her hands and straightened her posture as though nothing had happened. Her chest rose and fell in steady, controlled breaths, her expression calm, almost serene. Whispers rippled through the hall like a silent current. "Did you see that?" One cadet muttered. She didn't even break a sweat. "She's not human," another said under his breath, eyes wide. "That girl, she's a weapon." Commander Zh'kral remained silent on the balcony, observing the reactions of his cadets. His gaze lingered on Ava, analyzing, calculating. There was respect in his eyes, rare, deliberate respect, but there was also caution. Humans had always been unpredictable, their species famed for adaptability and sheer stubbornness. But Ava, she was something else entirely. She didn't just adapt, she dominated. Cadets, Sergeant Vel barked, attempting to regain order, fall back. Reassess. Medical teams, coordinate. The room shifted. Cadets retreated to the edges of the hall, some shaking with adrenaline, others wide-eyed with fear and newfound admiration. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of tension brewed. For some, Ava's dominance was inspiring. For others, it was a challenge, a provocation. A few of the strongest cadets exchanged looks. Competitive fire ignited in their eyes. This human girl had set a precedent. If she could push the boundaries, who else could rise? And who might fall trying? Ava remained calm, surveying the hall like a predator scanning territory. Her mind worked faster than any simulation. Every movement, every hesitation she had seen, every weakness exposed during the drills was filed away. This wasn't just combat practice, it was intelligence gathering. Each cadet had revealed their style, their limits, their instincts. By the next round, she would be ready for them all. Even as the medbots buzzed and cadets whispered, the legend of Ava Chen grew. The term Deathworld human began circulating more seriously. This wasn't hyperbole anymore. This was reality. The small human girl from Earth's most unforgiving streets had turned a standard training session into a spectacle, a war game, and a revelation all at once. And as the hall cleared for the next series of matches, one thing was certain. The Coalition's cadets would never forget the girl who redefined mercy or its absence. Just as the dust settled and the hall buzzed with nervous energy, a figure stepped forward from the back row. Taller than most cadets, exuding the kind of calm menace born from centuries of genetic enhancement, he was a Dravok named Kael'Thar, a species renowned for their tactical precision and unmatched strength. His dark, scaled skin shimmered under the academy lights, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Human, Kael'Thar's voice rumbled, low and deliberate, carrying across the hall. I've been watching. His golden eyes locked on Ava. You've bested all my peers, but strength alone does not a warrior make. Let's see if your instincts survive against someone trained to predict them. Ava tilted her head, assessing him with the same cold precision she had shown every other cadet. She had fought brute force, speed, and alien reflexes, but this was different. Kael'Thar moved like a chess master, analyzing patterns, anticipating moves. And yet, there was a flicker of excitement in her chest. Finally, a real challenge. The hall went silent, cadets forming a wide circle around the two. Even Commander Zh'kral leaned forward, his jagged plating catching the lights, intrigued. This was no ordinary sparring match. It was a clash of instincts, cultures, and sheer survival will. Kael'Thar lunged first, fast, precise, aiming for a feint that would normally disable a human. Ava reacted instinctively, sidestepping, twisting, and using the Dravok's own momentum to throw him off balance. But unlike her previous opponents, Kael'Thar recovered almost instantly, spinning into a counterattack that tested the limits of her reflexes. Every strike they exchanged was a conversation in motion, each punch, kick, and dodge revealing strategy, patience, and raw instinct. The hall seemed to shrink around them, every cadet holding their breath. Machines beeped warnings, medbots prepared for injuries, but the two combatants moved in a rhythm that seemed almost supernatural. Cadets whispered in awe. Humans and Dravoks had always been rivals in tales, but seeing one human not only match, but anticipate the moves of a species genetically engineered for battle, this was something new. Unprecedented. Ava gritted her teeth, feeling the surge of adrenaline, exhilaration, and focus that only real combat brought. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving. She was learning, adapting, thriving. And Kael'Thar? He realized he had met his match in a species he had underestimated. The first blow that drew a gasp from the hall was about to land. The true test had begun. The hall seemed to vanish around them. Cadets became spectators, medbots hummed in the background, and even the observation balcony faded into insignificance. It was just Ava and Kael'Thar, locked in a duel that was more than combat. It was a conversation written in punches, dodges, and the silent language of warriors. Kael'Thar struck first with a spinning kick aimed at Ava's ribs. She anticipated it, ducking low, using the Dravok's momentum to swing her elbow into his side. A sharp grunt escaped him, but he recovered instantly, circling, recalibrating. He wasn't just fighting. He was learning from every micro-movement, adjusting his strategy in real time. Ava mirrored the calculation. Every instinct honed on the streets of old Earth, every survival lesson burned into muscle memory, came alive. She was small, human, and unarmored, but her movements were precise, unpredictable, and utterly relentless. She dodged, struck, countered, and began to push Kael'Thar back, step by step. A sudden collision sent them both staggering, dust from the floor rising like smoke from a battlefield. Cadets gasped. Some whispered that the human girl had gone too far. Others marveled at her audacity. Kael'Thar's golden eyes narrowed, a glint of respect igniting within them. This human, she wasn't reckless. She wasn't just surviving. She was forcing him to adapt, to think faster, to push beyond his genetic and tactical limits. For the first time, he felt the thrill of a battle that wasn't a formality, but a real test of skill and instinct. Ava's chest rose and fell in steady breaths, eyes locked on her opponent. The exhilaration of the duel coursed through her veins like electricity. She didn't just want to win. She wanted to learn, to grow, to feel every strike, every feint, every reaction sharpen her into something the Coalition hadn't seen before. The hall trembled with energy as the two clashed again, blows trading faster than any cadet could follow, blocks and counters blending into a blur of motion. Commander Zh'kral's eyes gleamed with intrigue. He rarely allowed humans to even spar at this level, let alone dominate a Dravok. And yet, amidst the chaos, an unspoken bond formed. Both recognized the other as a true warrior, worthy of respect. Rivals, yes, but also mirrors, reflecting the apex of instinct, training, and the relentless drive to survive and excel. The first decisive strike was coming, one that would leave the hall stunned, cementing Ava's growing legend as more than a fighter, as a force that challenged the limits of everything the Galactic Coalition believed about humans. Time slowed. Every cadet, every instructor, every buzzing medbot seemed suspended in anticipation. Ava and Kael'Thar circled each other, muscles coiled like springs. Sweat glistened on scales, skin, and armor alike, but neither showed fatigue. Every movement was precise, calculated, a perfect balance of offense and defense. Then it came, the moment that would echo through the halls of the Vanguard Academy for decades. Kael'Thar launched a rapid combination, a flurry of strikes designed to overwhelm any opponent. But Ava, smaller and faster than he anticipated, bent low, slid between his strikes, and with a single, devastating pivot, slammed her shoulder into his chest. The force sent him skidding backward, sliding across the reinforced floor before crashing into a padded wall. The impact reverberated through the hall like a shockwave. Cadets gasped, jaws dropping. Even the medbots momentarily paused, struggling to reconcile the physics of what had just occurred. Kael'Thar staggered, then slowly rose, his golden eyes locking on Ava's. There was no anger, no humiliation, only respect. He had underestimated a human, and in that miscalculation, he had found himself tested like never before. Ava stood, chest heaving, heart pounding, but her expression remained calm. She hadn't delivered that strike out of malice. It was precision, a calculated measure of power, a statement. This is what humans are capable of when pushed to the edge. The cadets around them whispered frantically. Some were inspired, some terrified, all captivated. A human had just landed a strike capable of toppling one of the Coalition's elite Dravok warriors, and survived every retaliatory blow in return. From the observation balcony, Commander Zh'kral inclined his head, a rare glint of approval shining in his eyes. This girl, this human, was proving that survival wasn't just about raw strength or advanced genetics. It was about adaptability, determination, and the refusal to back down. She was forcing the Coalition to rethink everything they thought they knew about humans. Kael'Thar extended a clawed hand toward Ava. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. Respect earned in battle, rivalries forged in motion. Around them, the hall buzzed with a new energy. Cadets whispering, strategists analyzing, instructors recalculating. Ava's legend wasn't just growing, it was exploding. And everyone watching knew this was just the beginning. In a galaxy that had always underestimated humans, one cadet was about to show them the meaning of relentless. By the time the last echoes of combat faded, word of Ava's performance had already spread like wildfire. Cadets in distant wings whispered about the human who had toppled a Dravok rival. Instructors convened in hushed clusters, their tactical displays open but all eyes drifting toward the training hall's live feed. Even the AI simulations running side by side struggled to match the raw unpredictability of Ava Chen. "Have you seen this?" muttered Lieutenant Ferrick, a veteran of dozens of planetary campaigns. "That human, she's redefining what a cadet can do." "Redefining? She's terrifying," another replied. "If she's just a third year, what will she be capable of at graduation?" Ava didn't linger in her glory. She wiped sweat from her brow and walked among the fallen cadets, assessing injuries with the cool detachment of someone who understood the cost of combat. Some looked up in awe, others in fear, but all were forced to acknowledge it. She had shattered expectations, and no one could ignore it. In the council chambers, Commander Zh'kral convened a private session with the senior instructors. Holoprojections of Ava's matches flickered, highlighting precision strikes, defensive maneuvers, and tactical improvisation. "She's not just strong," one instructor said. "She adapts faster than any non-human cadet I've ever seen. We've never had a student like this." Zh'kral remained silent for a moment, his plated hands steepled. "Humans," he finally said, his voice low, deliberate. "We have always underestimated them. But this is not underestimation. This is evolution in action." Meanwhile, cadets in the training hall began forming factions, some inspired to train harder, others plotting strategies to challenge Ava and survive her trials. Even alliances shifted. Where once species boundaries dictated loyalty, now respect and fear carved new hierarchies. The human girl from old Earth had done more than win matches. She had ignited a spark. A ripple that would spread through the Vanguard Academy and beyond, forcing every cadet, instructor, and officer to reconsider the assumptions they had carried for centuries. And somewhere in the corner of the hall, Ava watched, ever observant, noting every glance, every whisper, every flicker of intent in her peers. For her, this wasn't just about proving herself. It was about surviving, adapting, and learning faster than anyone else. Because in the galaxy, no one waited for mercy. And neither did she. The announcement came over the intercom, crisp and uncompromising. Advanced tactical simulation commencing. All cadets to assigned stations. For most, it was just another drill. For Ava Chen, it was a stage, a test not only of her combat skills, but of her mind. The Vanguard Academy had designed this simulation to push teams to the breaking point. Mixed species squads, hostile terrain, unpredictable AI opposition, and timed objectives that allowed no hesitation. Many cadets would fail. Many would crack under pressure. Ava, she saw opportunity. Her team was assigned last minute. A nervous Irindian marksman, a Triarchon scout with 4 limbs, and a pair of novice human cadets who had heard whispers of her legend. They looked to her instinctively, uncertainty in their eyes, but she gave them nothing but a brief nod. No pep talk, no over-explaining. She trusted their abilities. What mattered was strategy, coordination, and precision under fire. The simulation arena was brutal. Jagged cliffs, toxic fog patches, shifting gravity zones, and hostile AI constructs designed to overwhelm even veteran cadets. As the starting signal blared, Ava led her squad into the chaos with the confidence of someone who had faced far worse. She called movements in milliseconds, spotting flanking threats, directing teammates to cover, and exploiting enemy AI weaknesses. Every maneuver was executed with the kind of instinct that came from years surviving where failure meant death. Her smaller teammates followed her without question, their fear replaced by trust. Opposing squads, a mix of genetically enhanced Dravoks, nimble Zalari, and veteran Arindians, attacked with ruthless efficiency. But Ava anticipated, adapted, and countered. She transformed her team from a scattered group of rookies into a cohesive, lethal unit. Every ambush was turned against the attackers, every trap used to their advantage. In the observation deck, instructors leaned forward, murmuring in disbelief. "She's not just fighting," one said. "She's leading. She's teaching without speaking. She's commanding." Commander Zh'kral's plated hands tapped together slowly. "Humans are adaptable," he mused. "But this is something else. Leadership born of survival, instinct, and fearlessness. Observe carefully. Lessons are being written here that will shape the next generation of warriors." As the simulation progressed, Ava's team began dominating the field, their cohesion an unspoken testament to her influence. The AI constructs fell with precision strikes, enemy squads were outmaneuvered, and even the harshest environmental hazards were neutralized through quick thinking and unorthodox tactics. By the end, Ava wasn't just a fighter, she was a commander, and the galaxy was starting to notice. The simulation ended with a thunderous gong, signaling victory for Ava's squad. Yet the silence that followed was heavy, tense, not celebratory. Cadets filed out of the arena, eyes darting toward the human girl who had led her team to a flawless win. Some stared in awe, others in envy, and a few in open hostility. Instructors convened immediately, discussing logistics, tactics, and debriefing points. Yet whispers traveled faster than any official report. "She's unstoppable," a Triarchon muttered. "She's going to rewrite the ranking system." "Unstoppable?" An Arindian replied, eyes narrowing. "She's human. She shouldn't even be this good. It's unfair. She's dangerous." The halls of the Vanguard Academy, normally orderly and disciplined, buzzed with tension. Ava could feel it, even without looking up from her combat gear. Eyes followed her, not just from curiosity, but with calculation. The victories she earned were no longer just hers. They were a challenge to every cadet who had assumed humans were weak, fragile, predictable. In the observation balcony, Commander Zh'kral stood in silence, considering the implications. Humans had always been unpredictable, capable of surviving conditions no other species could endure. But Ava Chen wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, leading, and reshaping expectations. Some cadets would rise to meet her. Others would crumble trying. Even within her own squad, subtle tension emerged. While they respected her, some of the human cadets felt intimidated. Some of the non-human cadets felt overshadowed. Rivalries were beginning to form, not just from envy, but from the natural instinct of warriors to test the strongest, to challenge, to prove themselves. And that was exactly what Ava wanted. She didn't fear rivalry. She welcomed it. Each challenge, each whisper, each skeptical glance was an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to grow stronger. The galaxy didn't reward humility. It rewarded those who could seize power, command respect, and survive at any cost. As she walked down the corridors, her steps confident, her eyes steady, Ava knew one thing for certain. She had shifted the balance. In the Vanguard Academy, humans would no longer be underestimated, and she would ensure that every cadet who thought otherwise learned that lesson, sometimes the hard way. Victory was sweet, but Ava's instincts told her that admiration often masks danger. It wasn't just whispers of awe she felt, it was calculation. Eyes that studied her from corners, cadets lingering a beat too long, subtle shifts in alliances forming in response to her dominance. Not everyone celebrated the human girl's rise. Some envied it, some feared it, and a few planned to challenge it. Among them was Lieutenant Kieran, a Zalari elite known for ruthlessness in both combat and politics. He had watched every match, every strike, every tactical decision, and in his sharp, crystalline eyes, Ava's victories were a threat. A threat not just to rank, but to reputation, influence, and control. Kieran didn't care about fairness. He only cared about dominance. And dominance, in his mind, could not be shared with a human. Late that evening, as the academy dimmed and cadets retreated to quarters, Kieran convened a secretive circle. He laid out plans, strategies, and simulations of ways to neutralize Ava, physical, psychological, even bureaucratic. His allies, a mix of ambitious cadets and skeptical instructors, listened intently. "She thrives on predictability," Kieran said, voice low and precise. "She dominates because we allow her to. She thinks herself untouchable, but every human has limits. We just need to find them and exploit them." Meanwhile, Ava moved through the quiet halls, oblivious to the plotting. Or maybe not. She sensed the shift in tension, the subtle strategies forming around her. Survival on the streets of old Earth had trained her to read threats in moments, to anticipate deception before it manifested. Every glance, every whisper, every shadow told her a story. Someone was coming for her, and it wouldn't be a fair fight. But Ava didn't flinch. In fact, a small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Rivalries, plots, and challenges weren't obstacles. They were opportunities. Every faction that rose against her was a lesson in strategy. Every opponent a chance to test her limits. And she thrived in these conditions. The stage was set. The academy had shifted from structured training ground to a proving ground not just for skill, but for influence, cunning, and ambition. Ava Chen's legend had grown, but now it drew attention of a far more dangerous kind. Cadets and officers who saw her not just as a peer, but as a target. Somewhere in the shadows, Kieran's plans were already in motion. And for Ava, the next challenge would not be measured in strikes or blocks, but in survival, strategy, and outthinking those who underestimated her. The next morning, the academy awoke to a tense energy that hummed through every corridor. Ava could feel it even before stepping into the training hall. Eyes followed her, some openly hostile, some calculating, and a few filled with grudging respect. Whispers carried in the air. Today would be different. Today, she would face her first organized opposition. Not a single rival, but a coalition designed to test her limits. Lieutenant Kieran's plan had been set in motion. He had assembled a team of the Academy's most skilled cadets, genetically enhanced Dravoks, nimble Zalari, and a handful of veterans whose tactics had never failed. Their goal was simple: neutralize Ava, prove that the human girl's legend was overrated, and reclaim the hierarchy she had disrupted. Ava didn't flinch. She surveyed the arena, noting every possible advantage: choke points, elevation, cover, and the subtle weaknesses in the opposition's formation. She wasn't just preparing to fight. She was preparing to outthink. Every human instinct, honed on the streets of old Earth and sharpened in the Vanguard Academy, screamed a single truth: survive, adapt, and dominate. The starting signal blared. Kieran's team surged forward like a coordinated storm. They moved with speed, precision, and lethal intent. But Ava was ready. She pivoted, dodged, and countered, turning every aggressive maneuver against them. She redirected energy, exploited gaps, and, most importantly, kept her squad alive while controlling the battlefield. Strikes and counters collided in a blur of motion. Every cadet watching realized that Ava's skill wasn't just physical. It was strategic genius manifested in real time. Kieran's attempts to predict her failed, his simulations useless against the adaptability she embodied. Even the most confident cadets felt themselves outmaneuvered by a human who seemed to anticipate every possibility before it unfolded. And yet, she didn't just survive, she led. Every member of her squad became a weapon under her direction. Coordination, timing, and improvisation elevated the team above the combined strength of Kieran's coalition. The arena became a stage where instinct, intellect, and relentless drive collided with raw power. By the time the dust settled, Kieran's team was disoriented, defeated, and shaken to their core. Ava stood at the center, unscathed, composed, and commanding. The hall erupted in murmurs, some in disbelief, some in awe. Even Commander Zh'kral, observing silently from the balcony, allowed himself a rare smile. Ava Chen had done more than win. She had proven that survival wasn't about size, species, or brute strength. It was about adaptability, intelligence, courage, and a refusal to back down. And as the echoes of her legend spread through the academy and beyond, one fact became undeniably clear. In a galaxy that underestimated humans, one small girl from old Earth had just shown that humanity's limits were only what they allowed themselves to be. The gauntlet had been thrown, and Ava was ready for every challenge the galaxy could muster.